In the vast silent theater of the cosmos, our own planet, a shimmering blue marble, hangs suspended. For millennia, humanity has looked up at its celestial companion, the moon, a beacon in the night sky, a source of myth, wonder, and aspiration. It was an impossibly distant world, a dream whispered across generations. But in the 20th century, a remarkable species, driven by an insatiable curiosity and a fierce rivalry, decided to turn that dream into a reality. This wasn't merely a journey of exploration, it was a testament to what we can achieve when we push the very boundaries of our ingenuity and courage. The story of the moon landing is etched into our collective memory, a single, iconic moment of a footprint in the dust. Yet the narrative is far richer, more complex and more astonishing than many of us realize. It is a tale woven with threads of political tension, incredible personal bravery, technological marvels that border on the miraculous, and the quiet, profound moments that defined one of our species' greatest adventures. The challenges were immense, the risks astronomical, but the determination to succeed was, it seems, even greater. Join us as we peel back the layers of this extraordinary chapter in human history. We will journey beyond the familiar images and sound bites to uncover the hidden details, the near disasters, and the profound legacy of that incredible voyage. It is a story not just of reaching another world, but of understanding our own place in the universe. Welcome to Fascinating Facts. Today we're launching into one of humanity's greatest achievements, the moon landing. From conspiracy theories to forgotten astronauts, here are 10 fascinating facts about the story behind the moon landing that will blow your mind. Buckle up. The journey to the moon did not begin in a laboratory, but in the tense political arena of the Cold War. In the mid-20th century, two great superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, were locked in a silent, ideological struggle for global influence. Space became the new frontier for this rivalry. The Soviets seized the early lead, their Sputnik satellite a piercing beep that echoed across the world, a stark announcement of their technological prowess. They sent the first animal and then the first human, Yuri Gagarin, into the void. Each achievement a political victory that resonated deeply on Earth. The moon landing, therefore, became more than a scientific objective. It was a national imperative for the United States. President John F. Kennedy's bold declaration in 1962 was a direct response to this pressure. It was a monumental gamble, a challenge thrown down not just to a rival nation, but to the very limits of what was thought possible. Every rocket launch, every successful test, was scrutinized on the world stage. The Apollo program was, in essence, the embodiment of a nation's will. The final landing in 1969 was not just a triumph of engineering and human courage, but a powerful, symbolic statement broadcast to every corner of the globe, signifying that a new leader had emerged in this cosmic contest. To command the first mission to land on another world required a very particular kind of individual. Neil Armstrong was not selected by chance or by lottery. His appointment was the result of a meticulous and deeply considered process. NASA sought a commander who possessed not only exceptional skill as a pilot, but an almost preternatural calmness under extreme pressure. Armstrong, a veteran of the Korean War and a former test pilot, had a well-documented history of grace in the face of life-threatening emergencies. He was known for his quiet, analytical mind and his profound lack of ego, a vital trait for a man who would soon become the most famous human being on the planet. This choice proved to be nothing short of providential during the final, critical moments of the descent to the lunar surface. As the Eagle lunar module approached its landing site, alarms began to sound in the cockpit. The craft's computer was overloaded, and the designated landing zone was revealed to be a treacherous field of boulders. With fuel levels dwindling to mere seconds, panic would have been a natural reaction. Instead, Armstrong took manual control, his test pilot instincts taking over, and skillfully guided the fragile craft to a safe, smooth landing in the Sea of Tranquility. He was the right man, at the right moment for the right mission. The words, "Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed," are now iconic, a part of the global lexicon. But in the moment they were spoken, they were far more than just a cool, collected status update. They were the culmination of nearly a decade of relentless work by over 400,000 scientists, engineers, and technicians. They represented the successful navigation of countless risks, any one of which could have resulted in catastrophe. The journey itself was perilous, a 250,000-mile voyage through the vacuum of space, but the final descent was perhaps the most dangerous phase of the entire mission. For those in mission control, and for the millions listening with bated breath around the world, the silence during those final minutes was agonizing. They knew the computer alarms, they knew about the low fuel, and they were acutely aware that the two astronauts were in uncharted territory, further from home than any human had ever been. Armstrong's calm transmission broke through that tension like a wave of relief. It was a declaration that the impossible had been achieved. The Eagle, a machine representing the pinnacle of human ingenuity, had safely delivered its occupants to another world. In an era before the internet and social media, the concept of a truly global shared experience was, well, pretty rare. The moon landing shattered that paradigm. On July 20, 1969, an estimated 650 million people, nearly one-fifth of the entire human population at the time, were united by their television and radio sets. They watched and listened as history unfolded live from the surface of the moon. From bustling city squares in Tokyo, to quiet living rooms in London and remote villages in Africa, humanity paused to witness this singular event. It became for a time, the most watched television broadcast in history. This immense, shared audience transcended the political rivalries that had spurred the mission in the first place. For a few precious hours, national borders and ideological divides seemed to dissolve. People were not just Americans or Soviets but simply humans, collectively holding their breath and then erupting in celebration. The grainy black and white images being beamed back across the void were a powerful symbol of unity. They demonstrated that, despite our conflicts and differences, our species shared a common sense of wonder and a capacity for achieving the extraordinary. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. It is perhaps the most famous quote of the 20th century. However, upon its live transmission, something seemed slightly amiss. Listeners on Earth heard Armstrong omit the indefinite article "a" before the word "man." Without it, man becomes synonymous with mankind, making the phrase somewhat redundant. Armstrong was adamant for years afterward that he had in fact said for a man, but that it had been lost in the static of the radio transmission. For decades it remained a point of friendly historical debate. The mystery, however, may have finally been solved. More recent sophisticated digital audio analyses have uncovered evidence of the missing A. The sound appears to have been spoken, but it was too brief and too obscured by the limitations of the 1960s broadcast technology to be clearly audible. This small linguistic detail is more than just trivia. It restores the profound intended poetry of the line. It highlights the duality of the moment, the single physical step of one individual, Neil Armstrong, representing the collective philosophical leap of our entire species. The Apollo 11 astronauts left behind more than just their iconic footprints and the American flag. The lunar surface at Tranquility Base became a time capsule, a silent monument to a fleeting human presence. Affixed to the leg of the lunar module's descent stage is a plaque bearing an image of Earth's hemispheres and an inscription, "Here, men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon, July 1969, AD. We came in peace for all mankind." It is a message intended for any who might one day find it, a lasting testament to the mission's peaceful intent. Alongside this plaque, they left a collection of symbolic and scientific items. A small 1.5-inch silicon disc contains microscopic goodwill messages from leaders of 73 nations. A golden replica of an olive branch, a universal symbol of peace, was also left on the dust. They deployed a suite of scientific experiments, including a seismometer to study moonquakes, and a laser-ranging retroreflector, which is still used by observatories on Earth to this day, to precisely measure the distance to the moon. These objects, resting silently in the vacuum, represent the mission's dual legacy, a gesture of peace and a foundation for future science. While the landing was fraught with peril, in many ways, the return journey posed an even greater, more terrifying risk. To leave the moon, Armstrong and Aldrin were entirely dependent on a single engine on their Ascent module. Unlike the vast, redundant systems of the main command ship, this engine had no backup. If it failed to ignite, there was no rescue plan. No other mission could reach them in time. They would be stranded, left to perish on the moon. 240,000 miles from home. It was a stark and terrifying reality that everyone at NASA understood intimately. The gravity of this single point of failure was not lost on the White House. President Richard Nixon had a contingency speech prepared, written by William Safire, in the event of such a disaster. Titled, "In Event of Moon Disaster," the speech was meant to be read to a grieving nation, eulogizing the astronauts as heroes who would, rest in peace under the heavens. The plan was for Mission Control to end communications, and, in the words of the memo, a clergyman should adopt the same procedure as a burial at sea. The successful ignition of that single engine was, therefore, one of the most critical and nerve-wracking moments of the entire Apollo program. The primary scientific objective of the Apollo 11 mission was to collect samples of the lunar surface. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were not just explorers, they were cosmic geologists. During their 2.5-hour moonwalk, they carefully gathered rocks and soil using scoops, tongs, and core tubes. In total, they collected 47.5 pounds, or just under 22 kilograms of lunar material. These weren't just random rocks, they were carefully selected samples from a place no human had ever touched, sealed in special vacuum containers for the long journey home. These lunar samples have proven to be one of the most valuable scientific collections in human history. For over 5 decades, scientists have been studying these pristine materials, unlocking secrets about the moon's origin, its age, and its geological history. The rocks provided the first concrete evidence for the giant impact hypothesis, the theory that our moon was formed from debris ejected when a Mars-sized object collided with the early Earth. These few kilograms of gray dust and rock brought back across the void have fundamentally reshaped our understanding of our own planet's history and the formation of the solar system. After surviving the vacuum of space, a perilous landing, and a high-stakes return, the Apollo 11 astronauts faced one final unusual challenge upon their arrival back on Earth quarantine. No one knew for certain if the moon harbored unknown extraterrestrial microorganisms. The possibility of lunar pathogens or moon germs, however remote, was taken with the utmost seriousness. The potential for a catastrophic pandemic caused by an alien microbe was a risk NASA was unwilling to take. So, an elaborate containment procedure was put into place. Immediately after splashing down in the Pacific Ocean, the astronauts were transferred into biological isolation suits. They were then sealed inside the mobile quarantine facility, a converted Airstream trailer, for the journey back to the Lunar Receiving Laboratory in Houston. There, along with Michael Collins, they remained in strict quarantine for a total of 21 days. It was only after this period, when it was clear they had not brought back any harmful contagions, that they were finally able to reunite with their families and celebrate with the world. This extreme caution underscores just how much was unknown about the lunar environment. In the face of one of humanity's most well-documented and celebrated achievements, a persistent shadow of doubt has lingered for decades. A small but vocal minority continues to believe the moon landings were an elaborate hoax, a film staged by the US government to win the space race. These conspiracy theories often point to supposed anomalies in the photographic evidence. The lack of stars in the sky, the way the flag appears to wave, or the nature of the shadows, as proof of a massive deception, likely filmed in a secret desert studio. However, every single one of these claims has been thoroughly and repeatedly debunked by the scientific community. The lack of stars is due to the camera's exposure settings, set for the brightly lit lunar surface. The flag, held out by a horizontal rod, only waves when being handled by the astronauts. The unusual shadows are a natural effect of the uneven lunar terrain and a single bright light source, the sun. Furthermore, modern technology, such as the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, has provided high-resolution images of the Apollo landing sites, clearly showing the descent stages, scientific instruments, and even the astronauts' footprints, still undisturbed after all these years. The evidence is, quite simply, overwhelming. The story of the moon landing is, in the end, a profoundly human one. It is a story of ambition, of rivalry, and of a shared dream that captured the imagination of an entire planet. It serves as a powerful reminder that when we unite in a common purpose, guided by science and fueled by courage, there are few challenges that lie beyond our reach. The footprints left in the lunar dust are more than a historical artifact. They are a symbol of our potential, a high water mark of exploration that continues to inspire new generations to look up at the night sky and wonder, what's next? From the geopolitical pressures of the Cold War to the quiet courage of a commander with only seconds of fuel to spare, the journey was filled with moments that define our species at its very best. The legacy is not just in the moon rocks brought back to Earth, but in the global sense of unity it fostered and the scientific curiosity it ignited. The Apollo program pushed our technology, our knowledge, and our spirit to the absolute limit, and in doing so, it expanded our vision of what is possible. That single giant leap was not an end, but a beginning. It opened a new chapter in our cosmic story, one that is still being written today as we plan our return to the moon and our first steps on Mars. The journey continues, driven by the same innate curiosity that first led us to gaze at the stars. The universe is vast and full of wonders, and the call to explore is an essential part of who we are. Follow fascinating facts, like, share, and comment below to stay connected and grow every day with knowledge that goes beyond the stars. Thanks for watching, and remember, the sky is not the limit.